Nazi, out! Out! You understand? Nazis are not welcome here. Out.
Sick people. Sick people. Unbelievable. We're living in a takeover, a total takeover of the government with their thugs, goons, the brown shirts, the Gestapo wannabe dictators coming to the church armed with guns and tasers and handcuffs to intimidate during Passover celebration. Well, I guess that's what it is. They want to enslave us all like the Egyptians did. They want to be pharaohs of today. That's what they're doing. Unbelievable. People, if you will not wake up, stand up, wow, I don't know what is going to happen tomorrow if Canadians will not rise up. Look what is happening in Germany. Germany is taken over by fascism again. The wannabe Hitlers are already ruling. You cannot even leave from one city to another. It's a total lockdown. If you will not be vaccinated like a dog or a cat, you will not be able to buy or sell. You will not be able to go to school or work. Is that the future you want? Is that what you want for your children and your grandchildren? Friends, you gotta join the fight. We have rallies. We are meeting every week and we need numbers. We need to stand up against them, and we need to, if we don't do it now, I don't think we're going to have tomorrow. Our rights are being taken away from us so quickly, it's unbelievable. The Gestapo.
That the bad guys are at a pizza parlor. You can kick in the door and flush them out, right? You just need to burn down that tower that's at the end of your block and everything will be better.
The most frightening conspiracies, those that are happening right before our very eyes in plain sight. I spoke to Edward.
Conspiracies are open and notorious. They're not theories, but practices expressed through law and policy and systems of government, technology, finance, right?
What Edward said there reminds me of an aphorism I heard elsewhere. If you take every single policy in which the two main parties agree, in that area, you have no choice at all. Do you see? If the Democrats and the Republicans, or Labour and the Conservatives, or whatever the appropriate parties are in your democracy, although I recognise there are some distinctions in countries like Italy or whatever, but whatever's off the table, you have no choice on that by definition. And when he talks about how legislation and institutional power can amend and adapt itself so that something is legal now, well, that shows you that is true power. Hey, it's illegal to spy on your population. Oh, is it? It is now legal to spy on your population. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Not illegal anymore.
Conspirators, more often than not, they announce their intentions. They're reported all over the place. They're in our newspapers. They're bannered on the covers of magazines. We get updates on their progress. Bulletined on the bottom of chyrons on news feeds, right? With so much regularity that we become inured to it.
Power neutralizes opposition by presenting itself as ordinary and normal, as opposed to dramatic or in any way draconian.
This leaves us sort of unable to relate the banality of the methods of their conspiracy to the rapacity of their ambitions.
That's an extraordinary piece of language, isn't it? The banality of how it seems and versus the rapacity of their ambitions. Because obviously the ambition, if you look at tech giants now and how states have always been, you need dominance, control. As Edward Snowden says elsewhere, government means control. We sort of have banalised, trivialised, forgotten what that relationship is, but a government needs to be in control. Perhaps this very basic principle that takes place at a sort of a chromosome level of government is one that needs to be switched, altered, so that government becomes about service instead of control, you switch to service, and then all the institutions and manifestations of that power would have service stitched into them. You know, when you think of what does Apple ultimately want, what does Google ultimately want, what are these companies and countries that go to Davos ultimately want? Well, it's clear that what they want is total dominion, uninterrupted ability to make decisions and to have power. That's where it's heading. That's where it's going. And if you oppose that by saying, I don't think that's responsible or healthy for individuals or for collectives or for communities or for the environment, wherever you oppose that, there will be challenges. And so I suppose what they have as a raison d'etre and as a modus operandi is, how do we achieve these, as Edward Snowden says, rapacious ends without seeming like we're pursuing them? Through banality, not even through artful distraction, but through bureaucracy. This is something that David Graeber, God rest his soul, talked about, is that through bureaucracy, you simply make it so tedious, so boring. And wasn't it always the accusation of the West and capitalism that communism and state communism was sort of bureaucratic? And no doubt it was. But look at us in our private, consumer, corporatized culture. So many signings of waivers. Look at that thing you sign when you use your Apple phone. Or now, have you noticed that Google, you have to sort of go down and tap an arrow a couple of times? That's them saying, it's not like we're not going to stop doing this stuff. It's, we are going to continue doing this stuff, but you've agreed to it.
They say and you'll be happy. And that's staggering at the time. But 10 years from now, 20 years from now, when you own nothing and are unhappy, right?
Hey, you said we was going to own nothing and be happy. I do own nothing. Well, so we delivered on that part. You own nothing. Yeah, but I'm unhappy. Oh, yeah, no, you should have read that really long contract. You did sign that, see? Oh.
But when you just scope out and look at the concept of these everyday conspiracies, the large, impactful conspiracies, the prime interest rate has changed. You know, a new free service has been created to host our personal files. These conspiracies order and disorder our lives, and yet they can't compete for attention with Twitter and Facebook.
I guess, again, what Edward Snowden is reiterating is that it's sort of boring. There's just this incremental bureaucratic creep that's colonizing personal power. I mean, I don't even understand what he's saying about that file thing, because it's too boring to understand, isn't it? It's too what about my files being shared? But presumably you're putting all of your information in some accessible cloud.
The truest conspiracies meet with the least opposition. Or to put it in a different way, conspiracy practices the proven conspiracy, the true conspiracy, such as gerrymandering or the debt industry or mass surveillance, are almost always usurped by conspiracy theories. We need to be careful because some things that are termed as conspiracy theories are in fact true. Mass surveillance, famously for the longest time, was referred to as a conspiracy theory.
There was an assumption that mass surveillance was a tin hat, you're a loon type conspiracy. Of course, then, many of the other things that are deemed and termed conspiracies, and you know, you're watching this online, so it ain't hard for you to access those things, presumably then may be waiting for verification, waiting for a whistleblower to come forward and go, actually, we are doing this. Actually, this has been going on. Of course, there are other aspects in the realm of conspiracy that, to me at least, seem reductive, vivid, and dramatic. And, you know, you believe whatever you want to believe, and I'm open to a lot of things. But for me, I prefer to stay in the realm of the empirical, that which can be proven and demonstrated, not because I'm closed-minded to further conspiracy, but simply because when presenting an argument in an arena that is defined by empiricism, science, data and demonstration, you're best not to go, I find, out on a peninsula of making claims that might be vivid and dramatic unless you can demonstrate their veracity, simply because you want to win the argument. You want to win the argument. By win the argument, I mean convince as many people as possible, look, this is happening. Now, if you do that, then that's a platform for further conversation. And as I say, I'm not closed-minded to anything, but personally, I prefer to keep my focus on stuff that is data-driven, because, well, then we can start to build change and create a different type of identity, way of communicating, way of understanding our world.
There is space for both. Conspiracy theory can be seen as a kind of parody. Conspiracy theory can be seen as a kind of gaming out where the public's vulnerabilities are a reflection of our fears. When I was working for the NSA, right, I was involved in this system that was intended to access and track the communications of every man, woman, and child on Earth to the maximum extent possible, and for that to happen in secret, right? Is there anything more grand and conspiratorial?
All we're trying to do is track the movements of every man, woman, and child on Earth in secret. Oh, and that's a conspiracy, is it? Oh, well, excuse me.
And it took me a really long time to extricate myself from that. And the funny thing is, because of the manner in which I extricated myself from that, I became the subject of conspiracy theories. People say I'm a Russian agent. People say I'm a Chinese agent, right? There are conspiracies all the way down.
This is what it's like to have been a person that's revealed information that could get you killed. He has, I think, a sort of gosh, please don't take it the wrong way, a sort of a Christ-like sense of righteousness about him, like someone that's acted with purity of heart. He's very sort of determined to deny and reject any kind of charge or sort of plaudits as a hero. But the fact is that a literal definition of heroism is if you're willing to sacrifice yourself in order to achieve a higher good. That is literally heroic. But I think Edward Snowden denies that idea because he wants us all to believe that we're capable of heroism. And that perhaps is even more inspiring than what he's already done. That you and me can be heroic in the choices that we make. We can be willing to put aside our natural and understandable yearning for comfort, our natural and understandable fear of change and sacrifice, and be willing to take off the blinkers and look at all reality, to be exposed to reality. Look, Edward Snowden's face literally looks like someone who's been exposed to too much reality. Like, you know, in the films when there's like a nuclear explosion and the sort of the whiteness of sort of the rush of epiphany.
I do ask myself, what drives this? Where does this urge come from? You know, is the existence of global mass surveillance not enough for you people? Does there have to be another level to it, right?
Again, I suppose that's further support for the idea that perhaps if the focus, from my perspective, and I completely understand some of you see things differently, is on working with what we can demonstrate, the way that institutions of power and finance operate publicly and demonstrably. If we focus on that, then it's possible to build mandates, oppositions, and alternative ways of being that would discount whole swathes of the way that power operates now. Even if you did that and you believe that there are some more outlandish conspiracies, and I'm sure there are at least some, I think it's unlikely that everything about how power operates has already been revealed. But by impeding and focusing on impeding the conspiracies that are demonstrably true, you would certainly affect the ability to carry out other malpractice that might be in the more extreme realms.
For example, the banking industry is going to war on savers, just sacrificing anybody who saved any money in order to avoid the debt collapse of all the governments that have overborrowed and all the companies that have overborrowed, and basically indentured the current growing generation, the youngest of the audience today that's watching this. Those people are intentionally, knowingly, willfully being screwed because of all of the political cowardice and poor decisions that said, we don't want to face any hardship today, so we're going to put that on the shoulders tomorrow. Often we talk about conspiracy theories in order to avoid talking about proven conspiracies, which are often too daunting, too threatening, and really too total.
That's something that I wasn't even aware of and still don't fully understand, how the savings of ordinary people are under threat. Certainly, though, what I do understand and appreciate about what Edward Snowden is saying is this sense that there is something enormous. That was my personal take home from speaking with Edward Snowden, is this is a person that's been exposed to enormous behaviour. I had the image of standing before a tidal wave, or standing before a glacier, standing before some blank and pitiless sun burning down. And any opposition to that can only be undertaken collaboratively. It's too terrifying for any one person to consider. Thank God Edward Snowden had supporters and people around him that were willing to take risks themselves in order to provide him with sanctuary and safety. And I think any of you that are interested in confronting power must know it is real, and you have to undertake it as a part of a collective. Individually, no one has significant power, not compared to the vastness, the great behemoth, the megalith, the monolith that we are facing.
For example, something like the war on terror in the United States, which is the greatest mistake of my generation, right? We're still in Afghanistan. Famously, Biden said in 2012 that we'll be out of Afghanistan by 2014. Well, now it's 2021, and he's saying we need more time. We need to think this through.
Edward Snowden has looked behind the machinery of power, hasn't he? He's sort of seen, oh, this is power. And, Biden, Trump, Obama, Clinton, Bush, whoever, they're sort of perched like little birds of varying colours on the sort of mighty tree of power. And like that, you can't get distracted by the twitterings and movement of these ephemeral, fleeting powers. You have to look at what's actually happening. He has seen, oh, it doesn't matter. Biden in 2012 is saying this. Biden in 2021 is now president and he's doing that. There are still troops in Afghanistan. Oh, wow. That's how power works. It works over a time scale that's very difficult, I think, for ordinary people to appreciate. This is a big creaking beast that we're dealing with that moves on a different timeline to us.
When you live in that kind of world, the idea that the bad guys are at a pizza parlor, you can kick in the door and flush them out, right? You just need to burn down that tower that's at the end of your block and everything will be better. That's a world that's more attractive because you have identifiable figures who are responsible for your plight, and you have the ability to sort of push them out of the way and correct things. If only you guys would come together. But the funny thing is, if we do come together, we can unwind all of these plights we face, even the extraordinary ones, but it takes focus and sustained attention on problems that are intentionally made abstract and boring by these people that are holding conferences at Davos, right? It is exciting and visceral to think about satanic rituals. Nobody gets hot thinking about the interest rate.
Satanic rituals. Interest rate? Fuck off. However, Snowden's ultimate message is an optimistic one. It requires a kind of discipline from us that we need to be able to look at these problems in a calculated, less emotional way. But what's difficult is we do somehow need to resource the visceral power that's more easily evoked by some of the less easily proven areas of the conspiratorial territory. Our focus, I suppose, then, has to be upon collectivizing, not getting distracted by superficial differences, remembering that the vast majority of people, no matter where you're from, no matter how you identify, no matter how you see yourself as part of a culture, have the same opposition. Centralized power is accumulating vastly, quickly, and without overlooking some of the, yeah, but you're from here and you're from here and you did this and you said that and you believe in this and you don't believe in that. That stuff is a privilege. Important though those things might be in a certain context, in a broader, bigger context, we must be willing to work collectively together, and that requires discipline. I'm much more interested in mad, exciting conspiracy theories than I am of like trying to understand the true nature of bureaucratic administrative power and the globalized power and what's really happening at Davos and why there's the confidence to do these things in plain sight, because actually if you were to look at it, they're not doing anything illegal because the law is in collaboration with corporations and it's is just a mystery of words and legalese and endless numbers. That's boring, as Edward Snowden said. But what is not boring is the idea that collectively we can confront power, that requires a certain emotional and spiritual discipline from all of us, no matter where we're from, no matter where we sit, that we should be regarding the priority as overcoming our own problems, giving over judgment on others, and working together to solve this bigger problem. How do we create a world for ourselves and our children to live in which we are all empowered and respected? Is this possible? Is this possible? At the moment when there is such powerful centralized forces, would it become possible, if not perfect, if power was distributed more evenly, if existing power was more accountable, if we had a meaningful exchange with our institutions of governance? All of these things I found to be hugely relevant and brought to the surface by this amazing conversation with Edward Snowden. If you're interested in seeing the whole thing, it's on Luminary. There's